Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we are going to be starting a brand new series entitled Democracy and Development, confronting a central ethical dilemma of international development with lessons from Rwanda and the Gambia. So, imagine for a moment that you are a community development professional. You were raised in a wealthy country, but you've come to a developing country to work. You went to live in a small, poor, rural village with the intention of helping them to develop. You believe that participation of the community from the beginning of the process is essential, as it is the only way to make the development more effective, but also because participation and democracy is a good in itself. You want to support the community to choose a problem to address within their community, a solution to implement, and then give them the skills and resources as best you can to enact that solution. After spending several months with the community building relationships, you call everyone together for a community meeting. You utilize the most efficient techniques for social choice of a problem and a solution. These techniques allow for all the voices in the community to have equal weight, even those that have been historically and culturally oppressed or sidelined. Everyone participates fully, and the community unanimously arrives at a problem that they want to solve and the solution that they want to put into practice. They are all excited about this solution, and they have arrived at the consensus decision that this is their best course of action. Now, it's unlikely that you can get all these pieces together as a development worker working in a developing country, but under the assumption that all of this has come together, what could be the problem? There's only one problem. You think that their idea is morally wrong. Perhaps they want to organize a genital cutting ceremony for all the young girls in the village. Maybe their plan is to attack a nearby ethnic minority living in a nearby village that they believe steals everyone's sheep at night. Perchance the village wants to start growing a dangerous but expensive drug in place of their subsistence farms and start selling it to the local cartel. Whatever the plan, you are convinced that not only is their plan immoral, but in helping them to accomplish it, you would be doing something morally wrong. If you refuse to accept their proposal, then the participatory process was not in fact democratic. It was just a dictatorship in disguise, where your voice is the only voice that matters. If you hold the keys to the abilities to accomplish this, the resources to do so, the funding to do so, you're the only one that matters in this process, even though everyone else agrees that this is the solution they want to implement. If you believe that participation is a good in itself, you're committed to the impermissibility of an outsider hijacking the process and turning a democracy, a participatory good democracy, into a dictatorship. What should you do, though, in the face of this in order to act morally? Abandon your own moral compass and support the choice of the group? Or deny that participation is a good in itself, perhaps, and say that it's more important for you to be an external colonialist dictator that says what the group is going to do no matter what they want? Should you maybe just give up on development as a whole and go home because you see no way forward? This series is going to try to answer this question and find a way to come out of this dilemma. This may seem like a very specific dilemma as it's written right now, but we're going to look at how it applies to the entirety of international development and how, in fact, this dilemma, this basic idea of should you allow for complete democracy or should you require democracy within bounds, is crucial to the way that various organizations do development around the world, from an individual worker to some of the largest multinational organizations in the world. Which is the greater imperative for the international development worker? Facilitating a community to accomplish its own goals, even if you think those goals are immoral, and you might be complicit in those actions by facilitating them, or assuring that a community will make ethical choices by limiting their choices and only allowing them to select from ways to improve their community which you personally think are morally right. This dilemma is not isolated to the grassroots level of development. From NGOs, which decide to limit the interventions that they will provide to countries or communities based on their own ideas of morality, to large multilateral donors, which put requirements on the policies of a recipient country in order to receive aid, you are either guilty of condoning popular but unethical acts, or you are guilty of preventing the good in itself of allowing people to choose their own destiny. As some of you are aware, I work in international development, and I am frequently confronted with these dilemmas. A number of philosophers have written on this dilemma and on various sides of it, but based on my experience, the solutions they have offered in their writings have failed to present an adequate solution to this problem, and there are failings on all sides. In this new series, I'm going to define participatory development in the next video with help from Dennis Goulet and David Crocker. Then I'm going to look into two main positions regarding participation and universal rights, as they're espoused by David Crocker and Martha Nussbaum. Those two positions are going to form kind of the two horns of the dilemma that maybe you've gotten a sense of already. The idea of holding tight to participation and democracy, even if that means going against your own morals, and the idea of forcing a community to conform to your morals instead of allowing them to democratically choose. Crocker represents the first, Nussbaum represents the second. Then I'm going to look at some objections to both Crocker and Nussbaum to show why both of those solutions fail importantly in big ways. Then I'm going to propose my own solution to the dilemma, which avoids either the issues for Crocker or the issues for Nussbaum. And finally, I'm going to look at three different types of objections to the position I offered and try to defend that position against criticism. All right? This is going to be something of a long series, and it's going to be spanned over weeks and months. But this is the central idea. We're going to try to take the positions that already exist in philosophy, show why they're insufficient, present a new idea, a new position, a new way to resolve this ethical dilemma, and then defend that position against criticism. Traditionally, philosophical arguments are made with thought experiments, logic, premises, and conclusions. This topic, however, deals with many cultures which are more connected to storytelling as a method of argument than the methods of analytic philosophy. Therefore, throughout this series, I'm going to use both stories and arguments to help develop the points. Hopefully, this is not only going to make the series a little bit more engaging and entertaining, but also allow it to engage a wider audience and bring both those in the traditional West that is often providing some of the aid, as well as those in the developing world on board to understand the dilemma for both sides in this ethical problem. So we'll start off with this quick video, which is democracy and development. Next up, we'll look at donkeys and democracy, where we'll tell a story about a village in the Gambia and the best donkey stall in the country, and give some of the basic framework behind some of the philosophical positions around democracy and why participation may be a good in itself. Then we'll look at a contrasting position to that, looking at constitutions and rights. So the first one is kind of Crocker and Goulet's position. This is Martha Nussbaum's position more, that there are some rights which should supersede democracies. Then we'll take a look at some objections to both Crocker and Nussbaum, showing that both of these horns of the dilemma falling on either side is an immoral way to act or an insufficient way to resolve the problem. Then we will get to the positive theory, the Wahale method of development, which is the positive theory I'm going to present, which I am going to argue will deal with many of these issues, both for Crocker and for Nussbaum, and kind of present a third path. Then we'll look at some isolationist objections and responses to the Wahale method for development, some colonialist objections and responses to the Wahale method for development, and finally, some Boko Haram objections and responses to the Wahale method for development. All in all, it's going to be a series with 8 videos. It's going to be in a big, long playlist. They'll come out every couple weeks, depending on what other videos I'm working on, but stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed this series. This is something that is important to me, and I have a lot of experience working in both the worlds of philosophy that are kind of arguing about this and the practical implementations of some of those philosophies. So this is an important series for me to do for those reasons of trying to bring philosophy actually into practice and see do those theories that people present in philosophy classrooms, in journals, in articles, do they actually map onto the way we can work in reality? And is there a way we can alter those theories to make them work better in reality? So, Democracy and Development, Donkeys and Democracy, Constitutions and Rights, Objections to Crocker and Nussbaum, the Wahale Method of Development, Isolationist, Colonialist, Boko Haram, Objections and Responses. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org. Stay tuned for the rest of this series on democracy and development, and stay skeptical, everybody.